I'd like to welcome all of the Eccles alumni to this event where we're going to talk a little bit about strategic leadership. I am Todd Zenger. I'm the N. Eldon Tanner Professor of Strategy and Strategic Leadership and also the Academic Director of the Goff Strategic Leadership Center. I've been at Eccles, I can't remember if it's 6 or 7 years now, but one of the reasons that I came was really to push this initiative around strategic leadership. And I want to spend a little bit of time just sort of talking about why I think this idea and concept is so important and why there's a real need for us to dig in and figure out what this concept is and really be much more effective in teaching managers, students, executives, really entire corporations about the importance of this skill that we call strategic leadership. And we have a firm belief that this really is something that people can improve at and really develop as a leader. We have typically thought about strategy and leadership as being independent concepts, at least the way they have typically been taught both in business schools as well as in sort of corporate America. We have had interventions around strategy, and we have strategy consultants that help individuals and corporations develop strategies. And we've had entire industries built up around the concept of building more effective leaders. And inside business schools, these two concepts are also very much separated and not taught as sort of an integrated skill or set of skills that managers require and need. And we think about leadership as something that is a skill that enables people to draw others down some particular direction or path through their skillful leadership traits and attributes. And we think about strategy as this exercise in deciding where an organization should go, how it can improve its performance, how it can occupy a position of competitive advantage. And we teach tools and ideas and concepts around how one should determine and envision this location that one should occupy. And we think in strategy about firms seeking to enjoy competitive advantage, that is, positions that enable them to be more profitable than their competitors, positions that allow them to accumulate new sources of value. And strategy is this exercise in searching for and identifying those positions and places that a corporation might occupy. Now, we typically think about this as an exercise that occurs at the apex of an organization, although I think it's really important to think about strategy as something that can happen inside departments and in work teams. We need to be able to think strategically and think about these places that we want to move some component of the organization or some department of an organization into a better place. But we'll typically think about this as something that is applicable to the entire organization. And the strategic leaders are those that can identify these valuable locations and then lead others toward them with great pace and effectiveness. But one of the challenges is that in leadership research, and I suspect many of you are familiar with the leadership research, what it suggests is that there are lots and lots of different ways to be an effective leader. In fact, there's a whole focus today around sort of building on your strengths, identify your strengths, and with the implicit suggestion that there are really lots of ways to skin this cat. There are lots of ways in which you can lead others in a desired direction with real pace. You can be quiet and confident and contemplative, and others can be boisterous and bold. that there are lots and lots of different approaches to being successful as a leader. But the research suggests that there is one skill that in some sense everybody has to have if they're going to be an effective leader. And let me just talk about two quick studies. One study suggests that a capacity to think and lead in this study was 10 times more important to perceptions of leadership effectiveness as measured by peers, subordinates, superiors. This was sort of based on a series of 360 kinds of instruments. Then all other leadership behaviors studied. Another study essentially finds exactly the same conclusion. This was based on a study of 50,000 global leaders, and they found that the best differentiator of those who are able to sort of move up into top management from middle management was their capacity for strategic vision. And so while there are lots of different ways to become a leader, every effective leader that's really going to move to the apex of a corporation or any kind of organization really needs to have this capacity to think in a visionary way, to really think strategically, be able to envision where these locations are that this organization needs to go. And it's therefore this capacity that we're focused on in thinking about strategic leadership, and this strategic leadership center that I'm a part of, the Goff Strategic Leadership Center, is really focused on developing this set of tools that are critical to being effective as a strategic leader. That is, this individual who's able to envision where to go, but also has the tools to take people there with them, and has those leadership skills that are required to enact that vision that they've established. So while skill and direction setting is unrivaled in importance, it's also unmatched in difficulty. That it isn't easy to simply identify the direction that an organization should go. And the fundamental problem is that direction setting is not sort of once set and done, that an organization needs to at least periodically, if not frequently, reset that place, that location that they're trying to go. And part of that challenge is simply the reality of the objective of really any organization is sustained value creation. The game is not about finding a place that you want to occupy or achieve and then getting there. Rather, it's unrelenting growth or unrelenting profitable growth, or it's unrelenting elevation of meeting the mission needs of a particular nonprofit organization that you might have. That investors, stakeholders have this insatiable appetite for more, and your charge as a leader is not just to get the organization to a particular place and ride off into the sunset, but rather it's to constantly find new ways to create value. And the reality of that is that most organizations dramatically struggle with this, that even the best organizations we think of often reach these plateaus. So firms need to accumulate valuable positions. It's not just finding a place to go and getting there. It's about finding a place to go, getting there, then finding another place to go and getting there, and being this sort of unrelenting value creator is the task of a strategic leader. Let me talk for a minute about someone who I think is sort of the quintessential example of a great strategic leader, in that he combined not only this capacity to move the organization, but he composed a vision of how to create value that has perpetuated value creation at, in this case, this is Walt Disney, at the Disney Corporation for decades. I guess it's probably more than a half century after his death. His vision has continued to direct the actions of this corporation. And I think this is one of the marks of a great strategic leader, is someone who can compose a strategic vision that has legs, that last for a very, very long time. This is a picture of Disney's, what I call kind of a theory of value that was composed. I don't know when it was initiated. This drawing is from 1959. I suspect that this was a decade in the making or more before that. But what you see is a theory in which at the center of this conceptual idea is animated films, theatrical films built around animation. And from this are emanating all kinds of other businesses, all of which draw value from that central core, but all of whom also feed value into that central core. And of course, all kinds of other, you can't read all these in that on the screen there, but all kinds of other synergistic relationships between these businesses. This theory of value creation, a theory in which Disney builds these animated films and then replicates these fantasy worlds in some sense throughout a bunch of other businesses, that theory generates value in each of these businesses. Sometimes it's providing lower cost, the cost for them to sort of craft a best-selling children's book is trivial relative to a competitor. In other cases, it gives them an asset from which they can dramatically improve the experience that someone has. Think of the Disney cruise ships, or think of hotels where they're able to charge premium prices as a consequence of being able to recreate these fantasy worlds. Other things, I already mentioned books, but another would be sort of Broadway shows, where they're almost guaranteed a hit Broadway show by essentially replicating the fantasy world that's been composed in these animated films on the Broadway stage. This is a remarkable theory of value. They've extended it in recent decades as they've gone in and essentially purchased new and not always animated content, but obviously through Marvel and Lucasfilms, they've built they sort of gained access to and built new fantasy worlds that they have been able to replicate throughout this other set of assets that derive value from this central content. It sort of sets the benchmark in terms of what one is trying to achieve as a strategic leader. And I think great visions are built around sort of three sort of sights. That is, this capacity to see in a way that other competitors can't see. They have foresight, an ability to sort of see the evolution of an industry, the demand of customers, the technology, or the evolution of consumer tastes in that industry. It also, a good theory of value like the Disney one will reflect deep insight and understanding about what are the sustainably unique assets that we either possess or we need to compose. What are the resources and activities that we can draw on or build as a corporation that will fuel our value creation going forward? So obviously these animated assets became this sort of central resource for Disney, but that's going to obviously vary tremendously based on what the theory is that you're pursuing as a corporation. And then finally, I think what we see in this Disney theory is that there's also this cross-sight that they have access to, this ability to see all kinds of other opportunities to pursue in light of a deep understanding of what their unique internal assets are, as well as a deep understanding of the evolution of consumer preferences and technology. And that this company has been able to move into a wide range of additional entertainment spaces based on the theoretical understanding that essentially Walt Disney initially envisioned back in the 40s and 50s, and has really been perpetuated up into here, the 2020s. And that a great corporate theory is built around these ideas of foresight. This is sort of looking ahead. What do we see in the future that no one else sees? It's about looking inward. What strengths do we possess or should we develop that others don't have? And then cross-sight, it's revealing unique value in available assets and opportunities, new places that the corporation could go. This is about sort of looking around. Where is there value that we can unlock that others can't as a corporation? And if I just had to sort of articulate Disney's theory in words, it would be that Disney sustains value-creating growth by developing these unrivaled positions or capability in family-friendly animated spaces, and also, at times it's been through live-action films. And then they assemble other entertainment assets that both directly support this, as well as draw value from the characters and images that have been built into these animated assets. All right, so that's sort of strategic leadership at the apex of a corporation, and not everyone is, of course, immediately in that space. But we think this idea of strategic leadership is also vital to all levels of an organization, and that what great strategic leaders do is that they are brilliant problem finders and problem solvers, that wherever they're sitting in the organization, they're impatient. They see problems that need to be solved. They see those problems, if solved, as vehicles for infusing new value in corporations. And that there are these vast opportunities for value creation that are all throughout the organizations that we operate in, but we don't see them often because we lack the theory to recognize them. This image here is of a frog with a cricket sitting on its head, and it's sort of designed to represent the concept that frogs don't actually see their food unless it moves. Unless they have this sort of image in their head of, food moves, that's when they move. And one of the things that a theory does, this ability to see problems, frame problems, is very closely tied to this idea of strategic vision. Einstein has this wonderful quote: "Whether you can observe a thing or not depends on the theory which you use." Your job throughout, wherever you sit in the organization, is to develop theories of value. My belief is if we can solve this problem, it will dramatically increase the value that's being composed in my part of the organization. And so part of the effort here is to build strategic leaders as people that see problems to solve, know how to orchestrate the effort to then solve those problems, but also are able to formulate those problems in such a way that it enables others to engage in this exercise of problem solving. And that great organizations are built not just with a Walt Disney at the apex, but with really an army of strategic leaders, people that are able to find and formulate problems and solve them. But that solution is only seen because of the problem finding effort on the part of the strategic leader. Okay, we at the Goff Strategic Leadership Center have a number of real beliefs about what strategic leadership is. We believe that, as I said, strategic leaders relentlessly pursue value creation. We believe this is something that needs to exist at all levels of an organization. We think it's a skill that can be improved, and that it can be improved not only by sort of conceptual understanding, but that experiential learning is a critical piece of this, and one of the reasons we focus heavily on that concept in the Strategic Leadership Center. Strategic leadership is both something that you are, but it's also something that you do, and those to-dos can be taught, and even who you are can be refined and developed. And finally, that shifting the way you think and act is really essential to strategic leadership and one of the foundational objectives of this center. Thank you.